Walz and President Trump, the ongoing chaos and rioting happening here in Minneapolis. We're going to cover it all. This is Culture Warriors Unchained. I am your host, David Webster, the Peruvian gentleman, and with me are my two incredible co hosts, AK Kamara and Drew Outstanding. And we're coming to you to cover the craziness going on in the world, to try to give you our perspectives. Hopefully, in the future, we'll be able to bring on some people from the center and maybe even the left that are willing to kind of discuss these topics with us. We'd like to get, you know, um, multiple opinions on what's going on, and we'd love to have you guys interacting with us in the chat. Throw us your questions. Engage in debate with each other. Obviously, keep it respectful and to the facts if where we can. But real quick, I'm going to turn it over to my two hosts. Hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already done so you stay notified when we go live every Monday at 6 p.m. AK, going around the horn, introduce yourself.
My name's A.K. Kamara. I am the Republican National Committee man, believe it or not, for the state of Minnesota. And in this trio, my goal is to try and connect people that really don't care about like how the political party works. There's a lot of people clearly that support President Trump and President Trump's agenda that went out and voted. One of the 77 million Americans that call themselves America First that are completely on the board with Make America Great Again, but they're actually not involved in the actual political apparatus. So that's kind of my goal, is to be able to try and connect people to something that I think is probably more important than anything else. Like voting, yes, is important. Like that's kind of like number one. But being active and involved in the party, I think, is something that everyone that cares about the success of America First and making America great again should try and get themselves a step closer. I also culturally, I like a lot of weird things, whether we're talking about anime, space. Space is a huge one. I'm a huge sci-fi guy, and I'm just a normal dude that ends up being the actual, Republican National Committee man. So, kick it off to you, Mr. Drew Outstanding.
Yo, what's going on? Drew Outstanding here in the freezing tundra of Minnesota. It's warming up to zero in the last day or so. Previously, like high of -10. And so we're still here talking, trying to have conversations, trying to figure out what's the difference between federal government, state government, how it all works, who we should believe. Are we allowed to ask questions? I don't even know anymore. Doesn't make sense, but I think we're going to figure it out in the coming 2 hours. In the meantime, I'm getting out there, having conversations, doing adaptive sports, speaking with veterans, veteran nonprofit organizations, veteran-owned businesses, Fortune 500 companies that support veterans. So that's what I do. I like to make connections and improve the lives of everybody, build things up, not tear it down. Back to you, David.
Absolutely. So we got a lot to cover tonight, and some of this is going to be obviously heavier topics, heavier issues. I know people are going to have some pretty strong opinions on it. Like I said, we welcome your interactions in the chat, your questions, your thoughts on what's going on. But obviously, the biggest story coming out of Minneapolis right now that kind of has the national attention and has potentially even sparked conversation finally between Walz and Trump, which in my opinion should have happened weeks ago, months ago, where there should have been a willingness to work together, is the tragic death of the ICU nurse Alex Preddy. I believe I'm saying that correctly. And there's been a lot of opinions, and I've seen a lot of different coverage. The Quartering, Jeremy, he covered it. Tim Pools covered it pretty extensively. I think Myron was doing some breakdowns of it. And so we want to kind of give our perspective as well, being Minnesotans ourselves, and then also two of us being prior service military, and even AK's a registered firearm carrier, and just kind of the appropriate ways to conduct yourself at a protest. And there is a difference between peaceful protest and unrest. And AM, our producer there, if you want to throw up, I think we have the ground news coverage article for this particular topic, and I just kind of want to go into it. There's a couple of different angles, and it's not even the only altercation that ICE has had. It's just kind of the one that's getting the most attention. So what's interesting is all of the media on this seems to slant left. Like when I was in here trying to go between, like, because ground news is great for breaking down what's in the middle and kind of the different biases, and there's actually nothing that's super, I would say, right leaning. A lot of the coverage is very left leaning, and they're saying, this person was murdered execution style by ICE, and that's just categorically incorrect. There's a lot more nuance to the situation, but just kind of reading into it here really quick. January 26th, investigators were reviewing body worn footage. So there is body cam footage that'll be coming out, so, and that will alter probably, what's actually true about this story. But I highly doubt that mainstream media will go and correct any of the statements they've made. But a border agent shot Alex Preddy on Saturday in Minneapolis, the city's second federal officer fatality this month. And the Customs and Border Protection officers were wearing body cameras, according to officials. And the video shows the encounter from body cameras and from bystanders, with officials confirming footage from multiple angles and eyewitnesses. We are working on pulling up some of that footage so we can kind of review it. But kind of going around the horn, AK, I'm sure we've all seen the footage. Drew, I'm sure you've seen the footage. I have some opinions, but I kind of want to hear what you guys think before I, dump all of my thoughts out on this particular topic.
Yeah, I'll go first real quick. Yeah, just that the fact that there's a lot involved, like you said. Having a permit to carry, permit to purchase, conceal carry, it's different in every state. Obviously, the three of us know a little bit more about Minnesota. For one, you have to go through training. So it's different hours, 4 hours, something like that, at a place with an instructor, and you do range time, so specifically to Minnesota. And they go over in detail. If you're paying attention in those classes and it's a good instructor, they go over every situation. Usually it's former law enforcement or current law enforcement that work at these places or do these trainings. And they go over all these situations, like I said, and they're like, if you get pulled over, here's what you have to say, here's what you could say, here's how to make it easier. And then in none of that is where they say, if you're going to you can go to a protest with it and do all this. And for me, I wouldn't, I carry, and I wouldn't go to for one, I'm not going to go to this kind of protest or even similar, on whatever side. Second, I wouldn't bring my weapon there because there's a lot that could go down. And if it's the intent to get in skirmishes, wrestling around with any kind of law enforcement, not to mention federal law enforcement, that's not a good idea. And then when the whole back and forth, when it happens, and then it's, they're yelling gun. Does that mean there's a gun? Does it mean it's somebody got it? And we just got to keep in mind, I'm just going to hit on this last part, is it's going quickly. Like, imagine being in a fight. Most people have not even been in a fight. You get, maybe hit and, something happens in a bar, but like everything happens very quick. You can't do this armchair quarterback where you can zoom in and enhance and, oh, he should have done this. He should have done this. Everything's happening. Every footage that we watch, listen to, it's all those whistles that are going on at the same time. So all that to say, there's a lot happening all at once. I've been trying to take in as much information from the specific scene, but we keep getting more information. What do you think, AK?
Yeah, I mean, I think anyone that wants to try and be, I guess, as unbiased as possible, which is very difficult to do. I get that I have my biases. Everyone does. But when I actually see an event occur, I try and take a step back from it and say, okay, what am I seeing? What are people saying? And then most importantly, the thing that people just in our current environment have zero appetite for is maybe just wait 24 hours or 12 hours because things change so fluidly. And so, when the news first broke on Saturday morning, my wife actually told me, she's like, there was another shooting. I'm like, oh man, just because I already know that things are already completely contentious. And it's anything else to kind of push the narrative of the left that ICE are here as occupiers and they're Gestapo and they're Nazis. That's always going to be what the left is going to try and really make political capital with, make hay with. So when I first heard the story, I saw the video and I'm like, pretty tough, man, because you see a guy that's standing in the road who clearly seems like he is interacting with other, anti-ICE protesters. Now, the media will say that they're observers. Everyone's now a legal observer. But I think that anyone, again, who takes a step back says, okay, what would cause you to just stand on the side of the road and then in the middle of the road in front of an active investigation, which you can clearly see all of these ICE agents. I think the idea that you're just there as an observer is it's just cover from the left. And when the video comes through and you see that he puts his hands on an ICE agent, whether you can say he was trying to be defensive from getting pepper sprayed, the point is that he knocked the ICE or Border Patrol agent's hand away. And then from that point, he is resisting. Now, my thoughts are, I said this with Nicole Good, I don't think anyone deserves to die, okay? I think that there are people that have made choices that end up leading to the authorized use of lethal force being used against them. And that is tragic. I wish that that person would have made a different choice or decision. And often, as I say in most of these cases, in the case of Nicole Good, in the case of Alex Preddy, they could have made another choice to comply. And I promise you that they'd be alive today. But I will say that the narrative right away, that the right, we took this and we ran really hard and we made some very, very pointed statements like he was brandishing a weapon. And right now, based off of the evidence, the video evidence that's been shown publicly, it doesn't look like he was brandishing the weapon. He clearly had it on him. But again, there's body cam footage that is going to be, I imagine, at some point released because DHS is talking that they've been reviewing the body cam footage today. And so maybe that will show something different. So
but then even not if it's brandishing it, if he
Yeah.
has, okay, even if there's not a weapon, it could be the fact that they could still be a threat is what I'm trying to say. It's
Yeah.
not just unarmed/armed and then just like, oh, we're just going to leave him. If he's causing a threat, that's a factor as well.
Yeah, and I think that again, like when we try and set that narrative on the right, we just have to be careful because the left will weaponize anything that we say. And here's the last piece, and I'll kick it over to you, David. I have had my permit to carry, and I carry almost every single day. I actually disagree a little bit with you, Drew. I would go to a protest with a firearm, but I will tell you this: the moment that I saw law enforcement, I would be compliant because I don't want to lose my permit to carry. Based off of my understanding of how permit to carry works, the moment that you engage in a felony or resisting of arrest while carrying a firearm, like you're going to lose your permit, man. So like that's not to try and justify one way or the other, but I just think it's important to understand that the idea that Alex Preddy was walking out of a donut shop like Tim Wall said and he got shot in the face by ICE is absurd. And I think that there is more nuance, but ultimately, from what I've seen so far, it looks like there was a justified use of force in that case because of resisting and the kind of quick actions of like someone says gun, 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 and then it looks like Preddy's still moving. So maybe the other officers thought like, oh, he's reaching for a gun. And again, if he would have just complied, they wouldn't have fired, I personally believe. Now, I want to ask you, David, have you seen any information about the potential that P320, because I believe it was a SIG P320, may have misfired? Have you seen any information
So
on
that's
that?
actually one of the things I was going to jump into, but kind of I wanted to push back a little bit on both of you with a couple of things.
Sure.
And we're finally getting to that as an episode where we maybe don't all agree on absolutely everything, which is nice. But so there's a couple of things. Yeah, he has a First Amendment right to protest, right? He has a Second Amendment right to carry a weapon. I actually think that supersedes any of the licenses they require us to get now, which I think are, that's a whole other topic for a whole other podcast episode. But if you look at the footage at AM, I uploaded some footage and see if you can pull this up. The struggle lasts for several minutes, and and he's disarmed. And I do have here the Sig Sauer report. I'll read it off here in a second, but my time in the military, and Drew, you can tell me if you had a different experience with your training, was that if you encounter someone with a weapon, right, and you've confiscated the weapon, until you've searched their entire body and done like a pat down overseas, you have an obligation, I should say, to assume that they're still armed until you've completely searched their body. So even if he dropped the weapon, and people have made the argument that he was reaching for his phone, but if you can see from this still at the very beginning of the altercation, he's already holding his phone. So one of two things happened: either he dropped it in the altercation, or he is still holding onto it, and that's what he's reaching for. But he reaches for behind him, either because he realizes maybe he dropped his firearm or something. But during this entire altercation, all he had to do was surrender, right? Get on your knees, put your hands behind your head or your hands up. And I've said that I posted this on social media. I was like, he would have a GoFundMe right now. It'd be probably full of like a million or more dollars for his legal defense. You know, he'd be
Yep.
the champion of
That's
the
what I was
left.
gonna say. Is
They would be
like
trying to get him out of jail.
let's go a little
But
bit
in,
slower, like how you're
yeah,
breaking it down. So yeah,
absolutely.
AK, like you said, you can go there if I, you know, how you're saying, you know, you want to carry, you want to protest first and second, you're gonna go there. But once you start in the act of a felony, that's when everything changes. And then second, perception could be a thing too. So it could be the whole thing where it's like, and could he have more weapons too? It's like you got to go through this. David, what you were saying is like, you know, you want to make sure that person is clear. Because yeah, okay, you just find one, you know, weapon. It's like, oh, we're all good now. No, there could be others, obviously. And then, you know, and how many people were there too? When you in the military, what I was trained is when you search somebody, you got a buddy. I got AK that has a weapon, and he's over here guarding me while I'm searching the individual. So, you know, like he has my back over here, and then I'm searching to make sure it's completely clear, and then we go from there. But this was like a wrestling match. It was, yeah, going back to like where you're at, David. The guy could have just stopped, hands up, go limp. You know, we saw footage of other places where, like in San Francisco, stuff like that. It's like, yep, federal law enforcement comes in, and now you're allowing them to put your, you know, hands behind your back, all that kind of stuff, just like it were any other thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I have here, so I'm going to read this off. I was looking this up earlier. So the Sig Sauer P320 has been subject to over 100 lawsuits alleging that the striker fired pistol can discharge without the trigger being pulled, causing injuries. While Sig Sauer has initiated a voluntary upgrade program and maintains the gun is safe, plaintiffs allege and some investigators suggest that a light trigger, heavy trigger, internal mass, or inadequate internal safety mechanisms may lead to uncommanded or misfire events. So it's entirely possible that his weapon misfired, but like we've been saying, this was a cascade of bad decisions. He showed up with body armor, he showed up with a weapon, he then engaged in a physical altercation. I don't know if this video shows it, and we'll play it here in a second, but I've seen some of the other footages from other bystanders that show him doing this, directing traffic, right?
Yep.
They're directing vehicles to block the ICE vehicles that are trying to leave with the arrested individuals in the back. And then the one woman is pushed out of the way, which ICE has done it with many vehicle barricades, right? They're pushing people out of the way so they can get their vehicles through. And when the push happens, he steps in between the ICE agent and the woman that gets pushed.
Let's
So now
watch.
you're interfering, right? Yeah, absolutely. Let's watch while we're talking about this. But it's just interference all the way
But if you
to
think hurting me will make this world safer, then you all have already forgotten how safety means. My name is Alex Jeffrey Preddy, 37 years old, a nurse. I've spent my life trying to heal people of every creed, color,
You can
and
mute this. I
background.
think
Applying
that's
my
AI
hands
generated
inside bodies
speech.
that were breaking down and told them you are not alone. That's who I am.
Yeah. What is this AI video you're playing, bro?
Listen, it's the first. I was scrambling to find some footage. Everything keeps disappearing off of like TikTok and Instagram every time
Yeah,
somebody
yeah.
posts something. So yeah, just forget that AM. But yeah, you can clearly see even from that image, like he's wearing like a vest. He showed up and he had additional magazines. Like that's not somebody that's preparing to defend themselves. That's somebody that's hoping for an altercation. And I'm not saying, and everybody's been quick to say, oh, well, he was a nurse, he was a great person, he was a hiker. Here's the thing, and this is gonna make me some enemies. I don't care. This is the truth. There are people sitting on death row right now that their neighbors would say, that guy was such a nice guy. He helped me find my cat when it escaped out the front door. He mowed my lawn when I was on vacation, or my mom was sick and I was out of state, right? Like being a nice person doesn't outweigh over here you're committing crimes and you're actively engaging law enforcement in a physical altercation. And that's been a huge back and forth I've had with people. But there is one other thing I want to throw up there. AM, if you have the I think or actually here I'm going to share this when I figure out how to share. You guys have been doing that a ton and I have not. But listen, don't judge me.
Hey,
All right,
Yeah, and
episode 10, right? Or 11?
yeah. So here I have this. I posted this online. So, so he worked at the VA, and the VA has this thing called the Walk of Honor. They do when a veteran passes away, they have an announcement. People line the hallways, and they give this person, like, they render them last honors. Like the people who were prior service military, they'll salute as the body gets pushed down the hallway towards the morgue. I've looked and I can't find any proof of this, that this guy ever had a military record, and I'm not saying that makes him a better or a worse person, but the federal building, this federal agency rendered him military honors today. And in
What?
my humble opinion, I think that is a slap in the face to everybody that served in the military if he doesn't have a military record. I haven't found a DD-214. Those are all public record. And I just kind of want to get your guys' take on that. I have some opinions, but I think that, it's not a required thing. It's a thing that VAs do voluntarily. But ever since COVID, they've kind of watered down the value of that, because when when during COVID was happening, they were taking on civilians. They were doing the same thing for them, and it's just like, either do it for the vets or don't do it for anybody. Like, don't, like, it's not the
I
same.
think if he would have been a veteran, we would have heard it by now. I see all of social media listing all his
100%.
accolades about being a nurse and yeah, like you said, a hiker and a director of traffic, like all this stuff. Like, yeah, I get it. We get it. He was a real person. We're all real people that have done certain things. I don't know. I'm about tired of all this stuff, especially when, I'm not going to change topics, but when it's like everyone's heating up this stuff and Walls is saying, hey, go out and record everybody. You say that, and then there's going to be bad apples that take it even farther. So yeah, I'm tired of this stuff. This is tough. It doesn't look like there's an off ramp. I want there to be, but yeah, that whole perception thing is elevating everything.
Yeah, I think, I found a video, and I'm going to play it, that has kind of a little bit of a breakdown. But I think that ultimately, when I think it's important to be able to try and be critical of the moves that certain people have made, while still saying, like, I support the overall effort. Like, I'm going to say this, and I know it's going to sound callous, but just because people lose their lives, because they have made choices, and whether or not they were the greatest, cleanest choices or the greatest, cleanest uses of lethal force, does not negate the fact that 77 million Americans voted for President Trump, and one of his top 5 campaign issues was to literally, and I'm going to say this verbatim, carry out the largest deportation operation in American history, to the point that the Republican Party of the entire United States, the GOP, we literally amended our party platform, and the second plank on our 20-point platform is to carry out the largest deportation operation in the United States. So there's no mistaking that is 100% what the American people, along with the other campaign promises that President Trump made, wanted to actually have happen. So none of that is negated by whether or not how bad the shoot. And let me just say this. Let's say that this was 100% a bad shoot. Let's say the evidence comes out and someone says this Border Patrol agent, he wanted to just kill himself, a protester today, and the dude gets, found guilty. That to me doesn't change that the mission needs to continue. And I think that that's what people are falling into, this pitfall. No, we need to continue with mass deportation. So I'm going to play this clip. Like I said, it's going to be a breakdown of, and we'll see how it works, because
Appreciate you running
like,
coverage for me.
yeah. All right. So let's see how this comes out, and it's kind of weird. I'm seeing if I can zoom in a little bit, because it's like, I don't know. We'll play it and we'll see how it comes through.
He approached Border Patrol agents with a handgun and intended to, quote,
Can you guys hear
massacre
this
them.
audio?
But bystander video recorded from
Yeah, I can
multiple
hear it.
angles tells a more complicated story. While it is not clear
Yeah, I don't care about this chick's observation, but so in this freeze frame, and I know it's kind of hard to see. I wish I knew how. I'm a boomer millennial. You can see that again. He was resisting at any point, like even right now, this exact frame, he could just lay flat on the ground, and everything would have stopped, but he did not. And I think that this is what's important. So I'm going to play a little bit more. It's going to show kind of a few different angles, but again, like
Yep.
at any point, he could have stopped.
And the group, there's a group there. There's not just an agent and a protester. There's a multiple different people, and once you get more people involved, it's
I
all
think
different.
this one's the clip where you see him like waving his hand, like he's directing traffic to come in. And the
And see,
agent is
like,
backing him.
but even right there, right, as he's backing up and he's standing in the middle of the road,
Yep.
that right there,
He-
you
the
can't
hand
just
waves.
do that, man. You can't just walk up to them
Mhm.
Well,
and
and what happened to jaywalking and obstruct? Like, these are all
Well,
crime. Like,
Yeah, obstructing
where's the
traffic's a
laws?
petty crime on its own, and then you get in the face of an ICE agent and you interfere with their process. That's now a felony. They can so at that point, then now you're under arrest. So everything you're doing is you resisting arrest, and then you throw a weapon in the mix. You're gonna have a
Guys,
tragic outcome.
I'm just lost. Which laws are we able to follow, and which ones can we not? Because it's getting to that point where everything's just a gray area.
In
I
Ellison
guess.
and Walls, Minnesota, I think it depends on whether you're a Democrat or not, which laws
Yeah,
you
I
have to
know, but
obey.
but
And it
for
shouldn't
real,
be that
but
way. But yeah,
you,
So,
you
like,
get what I'm
even, like-
saying though.
go ahead, Drew.
Yeah, it's just I'm getting sick of it because it's like, okay, the whole start of this is there are people, call them international criminals, that are murderers, sex offenders, and kid stuff. Do those people have to get justice? And
Right.
if so, the answer is yes. How? And of course, yeah, there are neighbors, but there are neighbors that have done or continue to do horrible things. So the idea is, shouldn't these people that are breaking federal crimes be handled by law enforcement, by federal law enforcement? And then the idea is that the state law enforcement is supposed to interact because they're either in the prisons that they could be handed over, and that's a normal thing, U.S. Marshals, all this different kind of stuff, or they're walking our streets, doing all these things, working. Yes, they are neighbors, they are everything, but they have done something wrong and something majorly wrong. And should they get justice? The answer is yes. So how is Walls, Frey, whatever jurisdiction they're in, going to remove them from polite society and get them wherever they need to go? I'm kind of just over it, all this stuff, because if we don't need to follow any of the laws that all these people are breaking right now because it's supposedly covered under the First Amendment or Second Amendment, then where are we at with all this stuff? I can't even
Yeah, and I'll say this, right? So, like, this freeze frame that I have up, the fact that he stepped in between the Border Patrol pushing the woman on the ground. Listen, like, this idea that if you're a leftist or you're like whatever, you can jump when a cop is pushing someone back is insane. Like, the moment that you put your hands on a cop, you are breaking the law. Now, unless that cop is in the middle of committing a felony, which, by the way, if the cop was by himself and you could say, well, this cop, he did something crazy. But in this case, he's clearly pushing a woman back that he was talking to. And so the fact that he interjected himself, to me, I'm not saying that this justifies him losing his life. I'm saying that this is part of a sequence of him resisting and interfering with law enforcement activities, which is what ultimately led to his unfortunate and tragic death. So I just
Correct.
think it's, again, at the end of the day, that's what this comes down to is
yeah, absolutely. And if
the
he was
left
actually
wants to
trying
have this
help them,
narrative.
if he was actually trying to help that woman, like let's go with your theory that let's say the ICE agent was using excessive force, police brutality, whatever you want to call it. If he's actually trying to help her, he's already got the tool to do that. He's got his phone out. Film the entire altercation. Don't step into the altercation and make yourself now the focal point, especially when you're carrying a weapon.
And
But, I mean,
the translation with this is it wouldn't happen inside a federal building. It wouldn't happen inside of a stadium. It wouldn't happen in these other places, even like a high-rise building where, federal law enforcement, local law enforcement could be conducting stuff. It is on the streets. So people feel that like they can do whatever they want because they're not going through a metal detector or there isn't another line of security. Or importantly, where is local law enforcement? Why isn't local law enforcement in whatever jurisdiction, Minneapolis, county, state, keeping the public, let them protest, but why isn't law enforcement being local, being out in line while federal law enforcement does their very specific job of removing an individual that they have information on has conducted the heinous crime and removing them from the situation? They're not trying to just go take out moms that are on their way home or a nurse that's directing traffic. That's all just bogus stuff. And if this keeps going on, if it keeps heating up, more people will be harmed. And let's not add to it.
The sad reality is I think that's ultimately what certain people want, right? The people that are behind the money behind, these paid agitators and things like that. Because you got to think about it. And I was reading this recently. Minnesota has the least number of ICE agents of all the massive operations going on. Like Texas, Florida, like those border states have a ton more agents, a ton more deportation operations happening at a much higher rate, but we have the most violence. But we're also the state that just got exposed with, what's the number at now? Like $20 billion in fraud. That I don't want to say that's all connected, but it's starting to feel really all connected. And the more martyrs they can create, the more pressure they can put on the Trump administration to pull ICE out of Minnesota and to stop investigating the fraud, which I think is partially, to a certain degree, ultimately the goal.
Well, you're on point. The other states, Texas, Florida, even California, the jurisdictions are working with the federal side because there is a breaking point. Minnesota can't just let in everybody, be a sanctuary for horrible criminal international people that are destroying, these things, and have them just be like, yep, come in, do whatever you want. Taxes, don't worry about it. We got our rich, all our big headquarter buildings with all these rich white people that, they'll pay the taxes, and you can just have all the fraud and daycares and autism and all this stuff. Don't worry. Oh yeah, go ahead and take out people too if you want. We'll just look the way, as long as you vote for us, just make sure that we Democrats can stay in power until the end of time in Minnesota, and just taxes keep going up, and schools, our children are getting hurt, so yeah, that's where I'm at.
So I wanted to kind of dovetail off of that with just another kind of point that I think you just made brilliantly, David, and Drew, you've also alluded to this as well. There is, like, this isn't just this organic thing that is happening by itself. Cam Higbee, for those of you that don't know and don't follow, you should definitely go follow him. He's been basically on the ground in Minnesota. I was
looking for this.
Yeah, he's basically been on the ground for I want to say since the Renee Good, maybe a day or two after the Renee Good shooting happened, he's been on the ground. Nick Sorter has also kind of been around, but he was able to infiltrate a bunch of different Signal group chats. And so here's what he says. I've infiltrated organizational Signal groups all around Minneapolis with the sole intention of tracking down federal agents and impeding, assaulting, and obstructing them. Buckle up, all will be revealed. And it says each area of the city has its own signal or several signals. Let's start with the screen recording of all members of the South Side group to start. And then he continues to go on to show, again, all of these different group chats. So this is highly coordinated, okay? This isn't just like a bunch of moms and grandmas and people just going out because they saw a news story and their neighbor got kidnapped. This is a concerted effort. The DSA, the Democrat Society of America, the Democrat Socialists of America, they have a strong presence in Minneapolis and in Chicago. They have been planning this type of stuff since President Trump won, because they knew that he was going to carry out the largest deportation effort and operation in the history of the United States. So as you kind of see this, there's even more that goes on with this, where we're talking about elected officials in Minneapolis within the city council that are alleged to be in these Signal group chats. There's actually a state rep, last name is Falconer, he's a Democrat, who spoke at a mosque, and he said that he is one of the organizers for the quote unquote resistance. Tim Pool did a video on it earlier today. So, this is not just an organic thing. This is actual members within the Democrat establishment and elected officials that are Democrats that are helping coordinate this complete insurrection against federal immigration law and federal immigration forces. So I think it's important to highlight that point. I'm curious from your perspective, Drew, when you see this type of stuff in you too, David, does this remind you of Intel networks over, when you're in the Middle East that terrorists used to share, right? When they would communicate, maybe not exactly Signal, because Signal is a newer type of phenomena.
Yeah, it's the same kind of techniques, like you can watch on. I try not to use too many things from my experience, but even on like Black Hawk Down movie, you'd have kids on rooftops at the edge of the city, and then they see the helicopters come in, and then they start signal. They call on their satellite phone to call on this, and then a lot of things would change. And now, what is that? 30 years later, we just have a lot more technology. We have these signal apps. We have all this stuff, and then
Discord, all those apps. Yeah.
Disco, all this stuff, and it can just happen. And the more people that aren't working, I guess, full time, just preoccupied with taking care of their families, which there's a decline in, families, 'cause people are preoccupied with that rather than can go hang out on Minneapolis streets for, 20 days or whatever it's been now. It's, yeah, it's, I don't know. And then you see the Facebook, boomers and saying, "Oh, it was just it was just a nurse." They're just trying to do things. But then when you actually look on the streets and what's happening on the other side, you see that James O'Keefe was here for a completely separate investigation, probably related to fraud and stuff that will come out later. But they were able to track his rental car. It wasn't even him that checked out the rental car. It was somebody else in his crew. And through facial software and facial identifying software, as well as DMV records, rental stuff, like all this information, we're in an wars. It's an information everything right now in data collection, and whoever has access to that can use that for whatever purpose they want to. And so it was like that, whatever, -10, -20. James O'Keefe was all decked out, just to stay warm, not even just to hide identity. And so as soon as they pulled up, he pulls up to like, because they started making barricades and everything, and they're creating like another autonomous zone and stuff like that. And so they're calling everybody fascist and doing all this. And why Joe Rogan, what are we checking people's papers? Tim Walz, Joe Rogan, they're using Gestapo languages, Anne Frank kind of stuff. But then now other people, normal people, even just a random person that's not connected to anything, they're trying to go through, they're blowing the whistles, calling her ICE. And she's like, "I'm not ICE. I'm trying to go to the store. I'm trying to go home. I'm, trying to do this." And then they're actually like patting them down, normal citizens. And so, yeah, it's everything's hypocritical.
Which is
There's no
ironically
information.
fascist behavior.
Right. But nobody uses actual definitions. They just use these
But
words.
just throwing that out there. So I want to, I guess, try to throw in one mildly comical comparison in this situation, because I mean, this whole conversation is pretty dark, and the urge, the ability for it to drain our soul a little bit is very real. But I saw online there were some liberals trying to make the comparison to our boy, my bathroom friend at Amfest, Kyle Rittenhouse, and I think that is the greatest leap in logic and probably the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Couple of things, couple of points on that, and I want to see what if you guys think along the same lines. Kyle Rittenhouse had all the right paperwork to have the firearms he had. He stood outside of privately owned small businesses to protect them from protesters and agitators. And he was actually like kind of a moderate in this middle. Like he was actually like, if you look at some of his stuff before any of that went down, he was not like full pro BLM, but he wasn't anti BLM. And he was handing out water and medical supplies. He was there to help, but he just wanted to make sure they didn't burn down the businesses. So you have a man defending his community from protesters, and also trying to help those protesters with water and medicine. And then you have a guy who's interfering with law enforcement operations, lawful arrests, lawful extractions from the community, getting these people out of the neighborhood. And the two are just so fundamentally opposed, right? Kyle Rittenhouse never challenged law enforcement. He stood between businesses and protesters, and if law enforcement had showed up, he probably would have complied. So I think that entire comparison is asinine, and it's just the left trying to rewrite history again, like they do in any of these situations, to try to make their person a saint and make our people villains, even though you could see where they maybe try to draw the similarity, but I think these two situations are so wildly opposed. And Kyle, I hope someday you come on the show, and I'm sorry about complaining about your dog. Please forgive me. Guys, what do you think?
Go ahead, Drew.
No, just the whole thing that we need to be all in agreement. And when I say like, trust or respect, are we in agreement of what the laws are? And then you're either going to make a decision to go off the laws and not interfere with law enforcement, whatever level they are, or if you're going to play that game, then sounds bad, but play stupid games, win stupid prizes. And I will say, I don't want anybody to be harmed. I don't want anybody to die. It's horrible and all this, but I've been staying home. I've been staying out of it because I don't want to be involved in anything or my family or any stuff like that. And I can see just the way this is escalating over and over, even in the negative degree temperature. It's wild to me.
Yeah, and to your point though, David, I think, you do point out something interesting, and I just think it's always important to give the right framing. Well, people who live in reality and whose brains function, they can understand that Kyle Rittenhouse, who was protecting businesses that he grew up around and that he had worked at, who said, can you please come? They're going to burn down Kenosha in the same way that they burned down Minneapolis. Can you come and help protect businesses? And Kyle's like, yeah, I know how to properly carry a firearm. I'm going to protect these properties from rioters burning it down. To equate that, right, protecting someone's business from violent rioters to some guy that's interfering with the law enforcement seems crazy. But I will say this, to the left, it's the same thing. And why is it the same thing? Because to the left, ICE are violent rioters. That's literally these anti-ICE people, their brains are so demented. They view that they are actually protecting the community from violent occupying forces. So I'm not saying that it's right. I think that's insane. We have a government. Everyone knows we have a government, and we have lawmakers. And if you listened at all in the last 8 years, they always say, my democracy. But yet they never acknowledge that we elect people to go to Congress and to pass laws and immigration laws. And then we say, you have power vested in you by the Constitution and the executive office to uphold those laws. So we need law enforcement officials. But their brains are broken. And I want to say, this is how broken it is. I want to share this real quick story. So basically, Tim Walz has been trying to use this Nazi ideology and imagery, I should say, not ideology, but Nazi imagery. And the other day, he literally said that there's going to be children in attics, just like Anne Frank, writing about how ICE came in. And it's such an absurdity that even the U.S. Holocaust Museum put out a statement. Their statement was, Anne Frank was targeted and murdered solely because she was Jewish. Leaders making false equivalencies to her experience for political purposes is never acceptable. Despite tensions in Minneapolis, exploiting the Holocaust is deeply offensive, especially as anti-Semitism surges. Now, my whole point of that is even the Holocaust Museum is stop using Nazi imagery when we're talking about deporting people, not killing people, and sending them back to their home countries. The people, the Nazis, if they would have sent the Jews to another place, they would have much preferred that than being murdered.
And the whole thing is
that for deportation.
Right. And so it's the whole thing is the way that I'm hearing it from people in my circles and stuff like that, mainly Facebook, whatever. They think ICE is coming after all immigrants. And David, please give me your perspective on this. Because I don't understand that their minds in this. It's I feel crazy at this because ICE has these laws that Congress,
You're right to
Senate,
feel that way.
We pass these laws that saying you cannot commit crimes and come from another country and do, they're going after these people. Because I think we talked about in a previous week where the guy rolled up and he said, what are you guys doing? We're going after people that are hurting children. And I was a lot more detailed than that. I'm not going to talk about it here. But yeah, it's what are you doing? And they think the guy was not a white guy, I'll say it like this. And then they started calling him a traitor and all this stuff. And it's what is going on? We're trying to help your community and you're actively getting involved with it. And so, David, why do they think their ICE is coming after every single type of immigrant, not the ones that are breaking the law being here?
So I actually saw a video earlier today, and it made me chuckle a little bit in the midst of all this tragedy. And it's an ICE agent stopping a person in a vehicle and being like, "Hey, you're blowing your foghorn, you're honking your horn at these brown people over here. They're legal immigrants. We know they're legal. We're not here for them. We're here for the people in the building, this next building over, that are illegally here." That's kind of racist that you're honking the horn at them and foghorning them like, "Hey, run for your life. ICE is here." Like, no, if you're legally here, you're here. Like um, a lot of people have asked me about this and my take on it. And listen, I'm not driving to work with all of my papers like I'm living in Stalingrad or something, or I'm under German occupation. Like uh, I'm just going to work and coming home like normal. I'm obeying the traffic laws. I'm not interfering with. I'm not messing with protesters. I'm not messing with ICE operations. If I were to see ICE vehicles, I'd be like, you know what? We're gonna take the long way home and get some Chipotle on the way home. Find some other way to occupy myself. I think all it's deeply racist. It's deeply insulting. And what's interesting is all these protesters you see, and somebody else made this observation, and I want to make it here on the show. They're all liberal white women, 30s, 40s with no children, or your male feminist, white liberal males. There's not a lot of Hispanics in those protests. There's not a lot of the black community in those protests. In fact, I watched this video of this African American gentleman. He was older, flipping out at the DMV because he was stuck there for like 2 hours waiting for all these illegals to get their free licenses while he's waiting to just get his license renewed so he can go back to driving his CDL truck or whatever he was doing. And all of this, just the way the media is presenting it, it's gross and it's insulting to those of us that are here legally. And I know for me, and this is something I'm actually going to be talking about at a future Turning Point event, the orphanage I was in, there were kids starving to death, waiting in line for immigrant status to this country or other countries where they could be adopted. And people die in those lines because someone else cut in line. Like, people don't think that's a thing. It is a thing. If those resources are already being allocated elsewhere to somebody that's here illegally, someone else who is willing to follow the rules is paying the price and potentially losing their life. I also, yeah, just the narratives being addressed. One of the other things I wanted to talk about just real quick before we switch topics is the Liam Ramos story. I was following that pretty closely. This boy, his father is an illegal. ICE is pursuing him. He pushes the boy out of the car, leaves him on the side of the road. And we just talked about how cold it was in Minneapolis this weekend, -22. And he's there on the side of the road by himself. I think he's what, 5 or 6? I'm just looking here.
5.
They take him to a McDonald's, right? You can actually see the footage. Like, he's sitting with these 2 ICE agents. They've gotten him a little Happy Meal, and one of them's letting him play on his phone. He's like watching like YouTube Kids or whatever in Spanish or whatever. And the media immediately jumped to say that ICE is detaining children, or they're using kids as bait to go after the parents,
or separating them.
Yeah, or separating them.
Like,
And it's like,
you got
this
options.
guy left his kid, and they tried to give the boy back to his mother. They made 5 attempts, and 5 times she refused custody of her child.
And you want to know why
and
she refused custody?
Was she also an illegal, or was she actually legal?
No, you want to know what's crazy about this story? Is
Hit me, AK.
she was afraid that if she opened the door, right, that they would snatch her up. And they literally said, "Lady, we are not going to take you. We want to give you your child back." But people that are insane,
It's
blowing
crazy
their
work.
whistles, were standing outside saying, "Don't open your door. They don't
Well,
have a
AKN.
judicial warrant."
Yep, and
Fear
think about it like
mongering,
that.
playing on
Listen,
people's
say-
emotions.
Say she goes by what ICE say, is saying, and just says, "Yeah, yep, I'll take to the kid." Would that piss off her neighbors or the people outside and saying, "Oh, you're going along with what they're saying"? And so now
Conspiratorial.
She would be the villain in the story. They want ICE to be
know?
the villain, but if she had complied, she'd be the villain. Just like with Alex Peretti.
maybe.
If he had complied, he'd be the villain in the story.
Yep. I mean, I could see
Because he'd
something
be
like that happen.
pro-fascism,
But go-
pro-Nazi, pro all this crap. Absolutely.
Going back to
100%.
how that happened, so it was like the guy, the father, and the kid right there. The father takes off running. One ICE agent runs after him, and then thankfully there was another ICE agent that stays with the child. I can't imagine running away from my child. Like, I don't care what I did or what they're coming after me for. Be like, "Yep, do whatever you want." And we talk a lot about the First and Second Amendments with this and all this, which I don't think illegal immigrants have the same First and Second. Well, anyways, but
Nope, sure don't.
you also have But say you're being, whatever, detained, questioned, all this stuff. You have a Fourth Amendment too, right to legal. So even if they're taking me in, be like, all right, do your thing. I know I'm going to get a lawyer. I know I'm going to get this figured out. But I'm not going to escalate it. Whatever they're accusing me of, they could accuse me of the worst thing. Yep, I'll go back and get in the squad car. I'll do whatever you want because I know what I either didn't do anything wrong and it'll all get figured out somehow, or I did something wrong and then I'm going to face the accountability and the punishment.
You want to know what's crazy about this story? And this ties back into stuff we've talked about on previous episodes. And we'll once again try to find some levity in this situation because at this point, if we don't laugh about something, we're just gonna, our souls are gonna break.
We need a positive topic after this.
So here's the best thing about this story with this young boy. All right, and it made me chuckle when I thought about it. Do you realize now that the federal government, ICE, has babysat and provided childcare to more children than all of the Somali daycares in the Twin Cities area? Like, officially, ICE has done more daycare work in one weekend than all of those daycare centers. That's incredible to me. And they spelled their organization correctly. It was only 3 letters. It's hard to mess up, but they didn't put leering anywhere. That's incredible to me.
That is incredible.
That's a good point.
Now I want to move off of specifically the topic of Alex Preddy's shooting, but I want to talk about something that I think is relevant to show that a lot of people are like, Trump won, make America great again, cancel culture is dead. Oh, it is not dead, my friends. Now, if you are a Vikings Bobo like me, I am a homer. I have been a Vikings fan since I was a young boy, actually. I love the Vikings. I'm always the guy that if you ask me, what are the Vikings going to do this year? I'm like, 17-0 straight to the Super Bowl, baby. That's me. Okay. I'm just like hardcore Vikings homer.
I've got a plot of land on Mars to sell you if you think.
And so because of that, because I'm a Bobo, I like a lot of things about the Vikings. So whether it's previous players or even our current local sports talk radio station, KFAN, Paul Allen is the voice of the Minnesota Vikings, and he hosts a show, the Paul Allen Project or Paul Allen Show, from 9 until noon, Monday through Friday. Well, he had an off-comment line, like it was literally like in passing, that he was curious on Friday, the very, very cold day, when all of the protesters showed up, and he just simply asked, I wonder if the paid protesters are getting hazard pay. Literally like a one-line comment. And the vitriol that he has received, they are trying to cancel this man. A beloved Minnesota, Minneapolis, St. Paul sportscaster, probably one of the highest rated morning shows in all of Minnesota, if not even beyond Minnesota. And he has a great show. His producer, Nordo, shout out to Nordo. He has this great where he ends every single show with a rap. He literally will rap to a beat of what they talked about in the show. Like, it's masterful. But Paul Allen himself, he is just this affable, friendly guy. Like, I've seen him a few times when I go into the radio station to do John Justice's show on Fridays, Twin Cities News Talk. I've ran into him in the elevator. He's just this like laughing, happy guy. But they are trying to rip him apart. And it's just because he stepped out of line. So I'm just going to read a little bit from this. KFAN aired an apology from Vikings announcer Paul Allen during a commercial break on Monday morning, earlier today, with Allen saying he's taking a few days off after using what he described as a cheap one-liner about paid protesters amid the Trump administration's immigration crackdown. The apology aired in the middle of a commercial break from 9 to noon. While it was never meant with any ill intent or political affront, I absolutely and wholeheartedly want to apologize to those genuinely who were genuinely hurt or offended by it. 9 to noon doesn't formulate political opinions. We don't bash or praise political discussions or even discuss focus on political issues. This time slot has always been a sports-centered space built to entertain, a place where we can chat about sports, offer an escape, yada, yada, yada. My whole thing, and then I'll kick it over to you guys, is like by simply saying, I wonder if they get hazard pay, caused the entire left apparatus to come down on him. Why? Because he is a cultural figure. By him saying that, it is something that aligns with many of his listeners that are wondering the same thing. I wonder if they're getting paid extra money because people don't believe it's really authentic. Who's going to be mad about illegal aliens being deported when President Trump won saying mass deportations now? So I'm just curious, we'll kick it to you first, Drew. What do you think, when it comes to cancel culture, that they've forced him to bend the knee? I mean, you didn't force.
Yeah.
Personally, I
No,
get it, but I'm just curious.
I hear what you're saying. It's a cult mentality. I'm not saying they're all cult members or anything like that, but it's this ideology and these tactics of you're with us or you're against us. Like I was saying, they created their own checkpoints and their own pat down people and their own blockades. Same thing with here. If any random person, especially if you have influence over a mass amount of people in some area, you have to go by the lines. And if you don't, even if you say a sentence, that will cause an uproar and they'll lose sponsors, they'll lose this, or they have to put out, press releases after it just for and that's why it's so different now. I keep going back to technology. It's no longer terrestrial radio or TV where it just airs and that's it, and you can just cut it or dump button or kind of whatever the case is. Everything is recorded. Everything will be used in a court of law or the public opinion or, harm your career, all this stuff. We have to be careful nowadays, but then at the same time, there are people that don't have to be careful, can say whatever they want because they know that they'll get the pass because they're going along with the supposed narrative of the certain side.
Well, and it's not even that they get to say what they want. They get to say the pre-approved scripted lines, right? That's really what it comes down to. I mean, my take on this is yeah, it's just it's more trying to control the narrative. This guy didn't say he was pro-left, pro-right, or anything like that. He just asked a base level question about employment, right? And we already have all these independent journalists that have gotten different protesters, different agitators to admit that they're paid to be there. And there were people that even got into some of those groups and they heard the people talking about like, yeah, I'm doing this shift or I'm doing that shift. Like they're treating it like a job. They're getting paid to be there. They're paid agitators. And then he just asked a base level employment question, like, they're getting hazard pay. That's a
it's a
reasonable
joke
question.
because of the coldness, just like
Right,
you
yeah,
would
and it's
if you're
funny,
at a,
but it's also that it's a reasonable question. It's not even in the realm of an unreasonable question.
and people are saying like it's paid, and it's not necessarily
Mhm.
they're getting whatever $20 an hour or something like that. They're getting access. They're getting put it like this: they're getting training. I know a lot of people that said, hey. Some whatever friends of mine that says like, oh yeah, I'm signed up on all these things and I'm getting asked to come and do training on how to handle interactions with law enforcement, how to handle these stuff that the demonstrators protests are going through. And they're like, I don't know why I'm getting these text messages, these emails, these kind of group invites to go somewhere and get training on this type of stuff, but people are getting trained on it, whether they're getting paid in dollars or paid in, access, whatever it is. We don't know.
What's weird is I never had to get trained how to interact with law enforcement in my day-to-day life. I had a father and he taught me to, just to treat people with respect and to respect authority. First his, then God's, the church, the whoever the authoritarian at my school was. Like I was taught to respect authority. So when I'm out interacting with people with authority, I didn't need to go to a class on it. I'm just like, this is the same authority and respect that I'd give, the headmaster at a private school, my father when I'm in trouble, or anybody else. And I've never, I haven't been pistol whipped in the face. I haven't been hit with a can of mace. I was gas chambered in the army, but that was voluntary. I signed up for that. I don't know why. I'm just kidding. It was a great time. Everything except that was a great time in the military. But yeah, this whole narrative is just it's along with everything else, like you were saying earlier, Drew. Like I'm tired. They're making things out of things that aren't really an issue because ultimately they don't want to be held accountable for what they're doing, right? And even a joke question invites accountability into what these protesters are doing and the environment that they're creating here in Minnesota and the loss of lives that are going to be the result of this ongoing conflict.
Yeah, and I just want to kind of bring out one last point. I have pulled up my thoughts on this, and also shout out. You can follow me, real AK Kamara. I said the Minnesota legacy media machine is trying to get PA fired for a tame joke about paid anti-ICE protesters. Paul Allen is a Christian, a great radio host, and the best radio play-by-play caller in the NFL. This is what the DFL institutional cult does to anyone who dares deviate from protocol. And I want to make this point. Just think in your mind, is there another personality, whether it's in the Twin Cities or nationally, that the moment they say anything that could at all be deemed to be a right of center value, they are immediately castigated, canceled, have to issue apologies? But all of these media personalities could say things like, I support standing with the protesters and I support getting ICE out of Minnesota. Like, they literally can go and say that. They can go and spout and say, yeah, I don't think I should be doing this. To the point, listen to Dan Barrero. He talks about all of his political values all the time. They just happen to mostly be left of center. I'm not saying he's not critical of people on the right, because he's critical of I should say people on the left. He's always critical of people on the right. He is critical of people on the left, but he never adopts like a left of center, a right of center position. So just keep that in your mind. Understand that the reason that they come after people like Paul Allen so hard is, again, he is a cultural icon. And you in the Minneapolis, St. Paul, Minnesota area, you can't have a cultural icon who's loved by people all across political stripes say something that agrees with a right of center viewpoint. Otherwise, you're canceled, because the left will lose their cultural hold, their stranglehold that they have on Minnesota. And so before we jump to the next topic, I know we got some chatters. So I just want to throw a couple of the chats out there. For those of you watching, we always try and address the chats at some point, maybe around the 1 hour mark. First, we got John saying, I saw a clip where it clearly looked like the gun went off by itself. Back to talking about the 6-hour P320. He has a video showing it. I've seen that video too. It's pretty interesting. I think sometimes we'll see what we want to see. We have to kind of see more of an investigation and also get some of that body cam footage. I think that the officer that was holding the gun, he would clearly tell if it went off, right? Like, he should be able to attest and say, yeah, man, the thing went off right in my hand. And then Rita said they make it sound like he was a hero, talking about Preddy. Agree with you, don't bring a gun to a protest. John also said, I can't wait to see tomorrow's O'Keefe video, because he recorded that these deranged leftists were following him around and actually told him, if you don't get out of town in an hour, we're going to murder you. Matt says neither side seems to have much trust in the judicial system. I think that that's a fairly reasonable assumption. It's not that the right doesn't trust the judicial system on its face. They've lost our trust because of J6 and how they went after all the J6ers, how they went after President Trump. And then also,
and how they keep releasing all the violent illegals every time they get arrested and detained. Judges let them go.
Yeah, that happens quite often.
Killed the Ukrainian refugee on the bus, right? He'd been released 16 times. We on the right don't necessarily trust the judicial system under the form that it's currently occupied for the last 8 years either.
Yeah. John also said, how about the Signal Gate? And then after this, we'll move on and we'll read some more of your comments later on in the show. But how about the Signal Gate? If you looked into, apparently Minnesota state employees are working with the agitators on the Signal app. There's a giant license plate database of all the vehicles that they use, which is a very good point. In order to be able to run people's license plates, either you have to have black market software that basically runs a clone program from an employee's laptop, or you just have to have access. And if you guys remember, maybe you don't, but 10 years ago, there was a big scandal that there was some deputy sheriffs that were basically running people's license plates and then tracking them down on social media and trying to date them. And it was a big problem, and they got fired for doing that. So yeah,
there are so many dating apps. Why on earth?
Well, you see a baddie, and you see that she's driving this whip, and you're like, oh, I'm gonna get at this baddie. So you look her up, and then you go lurk on her social media and say, hey, what up, shawty?
All right, let's give most current update.
That's
we
not
have
how I
before
date. Oh my God! Sorry, go ahead,
All
Drew.
Yep. Before the show started, this was the last information we had. The White House, and keep this in mind, Trump has been, a lot of the executives have been at the, what is it, World Economic Forum? No. What is the world?
Davos.
Davos, whatever the
Davos.
world elite
Yeah.
people that are controlling everything that we do anyways, like any of this even matters.
That weird German.
I'm
font
joking,
villain
but
that
yeah.
says we are the ones that control. Yeah.
Right. So yeah, they're all over doing all that kind of stuff. So Trump hasn't been interacting with this as much as a lot of us would have hoped it would. But I guess today, White House says Trump admin could pull Border Patrol from Minnesota if Walz and Frey cooperate. So Levitt noted on Monday morning a phone call that Trump had with Walz. See, and that's what I wanted to see. Walz has been making all these press conferences and all these things, and referring to the, bad German people in the middle of this century and all this stuff. And I'm like, he's like, Trump, when are you going to do this? I'm like, hey, dude, call him. You're the top executive in Minnesota. Call the top executive in the country. Like, I'm sure you guys can talk. Stop talking to each other through press conferences. But yeah, so apparently they had a call because Walz has been saying, oh yeah, all this will go away if you just get rid of your federal agents and out of Minnesota, and we're not going to change anything. It doesn't really quite happen like that. So we'll see. So yeah, White House press secretary Caroline Levitt said in Monday press briefing that the U.S. Customs and Border Patrol, CBT, would be pulled from supporting immigration and customs enforcement agents from Minnesota if lawmakers in the state, such as Tim Walz and Jacob Frey, implement common sense cooperative measures. I want to know what that's defined by. I'm all about definitions. Let's not use these words where they can be different things. But yeah, how about be freaking clear with the stuff? Hey, do you guys know what SMART goals are? Like, can we be specific, measurable, attainable, timely? Like, can we just come on, stop? I get it. I know, all this clicks, and if it bleeds, it leads, and everyone's making money off it, except for the random taxpayers. I get that. But at the same time, can we bring this stuff down a little bit? So yeah, I'm going to play this. Somebody give me a thumbs up if you can hear it when I play it.
That's why President Trump spoke with Governor Walz directly this morning, and he has outlined a clear and simple path to restoring law and order in Minnesota. Number one, Governor Walz, Mayor Frey, and all Democrat leaders should turn over all criminal illegal aliens currently incarcerated in their prisons and jails to federal authorities, along with any illegal aliens with active warrants or known criminal histories for immediate deportation. Number two, state and local law enforcement must agree to turn over all illegal aliens who are arrested by local police. And then thirdly, local police must assist federal law enforcement in apprehending and detaining illegal aliens who are wanted for crimes, especially violent crimes. If Governor Walz and Mayor Frey implement these common sense cooperative measures that I will add have already been implemented in nearly every single other state across the country, Customs and Border Patrol will not be needed to support ICE on the ground in Minnesota.
All right, yeah, there we go with that. It's common sense to me. Walz is saying, hey, just get out of here while we still let, criminals do criminal things. And the federal government is saying, if you hand over the people that are doing criminal things, not your David Websters, it's all the bad ones, do that. You have them in prison or you have them here.
All I
or
do
they're
is
getting,
swipe left a lot.
or they're getting whatever, Medicaid, Medicare, Minnesota Care, all these things. You know who they are, hand them over, and we don't have to be here. People, nurses and moms and lesbian wives, not wives, won't have to get all caught in the crosshairs. It doesn't have to be like this. I know everyone's making money off this except for us that are paying money into it, but it's like, guys, go behind the scenes, stop getting in front of the cameras, figure your stuff out, and let us go back to what, seeing Marvel movies.
Yeah, I think, that story, more specifically the news story that Trump and Walz spoke, President Trump loves the truth. And so he truthed out basically saying that they had a productive conversation. Of course, Tim Walz, being a political animal and a liar and a deceiver, ran to the Wall Street Journal and published basically his commentary, where he wagged his finger and he goes, I told Trump that he was wrong about so many things. And basically the way that they're framing it is that Trump is bending the knee because there's too much negative press about what's happening in Minnesota, and that Border Patrol's overstepped their bounds to the point that the reports right now are that Tom Homan, who is the border czar, is going to come in and take over operations of ICE, where Commander Bovino, who is under the umbrella, under Secretary Noem in the DHS, under her direct command, that he's going to go and work on other states' operations. And that because Tom Homan has been the border czar across multiple administrations, received multiple accolades and awards from President Obama, also awards from President Joe Biden, that he will be someone that can maybe be better at negotiating these things. Now, I don't agree that Trump is bending the knee at all. I just think that he's trying a different strategy. I do not believe that they are going to at all calm down on their mission. It's just they might strategically make things look different. So like it's funny because in this information war that we're currently in, it's all about what do people perceive to be true. And I think that Trump and the administration, sometimes they fumble the ball when it comes to perception. Other times they kind of like, after they fumble the ball, the next play, they're like, oh, this was, you're able to recover. You're able to make, finally get your first down, or sometimes you get a touchdown with the way that they recover on certain things. And I just think that it needs to be crystal clear. The deportations are not going to stop because it can't stop. It's our laws. And we're not in a country that you can just decide that states get to nullify federal laws. We had a great civil war about that when it came to slavery. We had National Guard troops deployed during the civil rights era because states said we're not going to integrate these schools. And that conversation has been had. So we're not going to nullify over immigration. That's absurd. So I do think that people need to maybe take a step back, and the Democrats are going to maybe look for a little bit of an off ramp. And that's my little bit of a silver lining, that maybe Walz is a little bit ahead of his skis. And he knows that if he doesn't tone things down, Trump will invoke the Insurrection Act, and he doesn't want that kind of smoke, or be the guy that goes down in history as the governor that kicked off an actual state insurrection or rebellion, because that's what he'd be known as for the rest of his life. Mayor Fry doesn't
Out of
care.
the rest of all time.
Mayor Fry doesn't care because he's just a crappy mayor of like the whatever. Minneapolis I like from time to time. Like, it's not like I hate the city or whatever, but I don't live there for a reason. I like to go there when I need to do stuff or make money. But ultimately, who cares about Minneapolis in the grand scheme of things? Mayor Fry doesn't care. He's never going to be in the history books other than being a weak man who wears mom jeans and dances horribly. But yeah, this is ultimately the way I look at it, is that this is a smart strategic move. You kind of change around some pieces. People feel like maybe they've made some concessions, but you realize that like we're just going to go at a different angle, but the deportations will continue. That's a non sequitur. You cannot negotiate.
Why do you think the average person doesn't want, or isn't talking about that, doesn't want that to happen? Doesn't want to happen, the legitimate criminal deportations to happen?
Because
I
they're
think
playing on people's emotions.
I think they do. They've just been convinced and tricked. And I hate to say this, but fooled by the media that ICE is literally going and snatching up American citizens and kidnapping legal immigrants.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what
They're playing on
their
people's
perception
emotions.
is. That's what they think is
saying that-
actually happening. That they're just deporting brown people. And
But
there's
I want
even
them-
crazy
I wanna
stories that
hear
they were
them say-
dumping them in the plane
I know,
off
and
into the ocean.
it gets wild, but I really
Well,
want
it's
to
like we
hear
said
those
before,
people
there's a
say,
difference between arrested and detained, right?
"Yep,
Like,
anybody can
arrested
get
is
detained." Like
you're
if
illegal.
you're
Detained is we're verifying your status.
right, and you can get arrested, pulled over on the side of the road, and be detained and gone through everything, and maybe you have a tattoo. They're searching for somebody with a certain tattoo, and yours looks like that. We're going to take you in, do all this stuff. You're being detained, arrested, whatever you want to see the classification, but then they figure it out and then let you go. This is similar to kind of what could be going on in these operations. They'll clear it and then you'll be on your way. Obviously it's not awesome, but if you stay out of the way, then it won't happen.
You get through it a lot faster with things like compliance. So one of the thoughts that I have, this is something I wanted to bring up at some point on the show, is what nobody's talking about while they're playing this emotional game of like, you should support families and ICE is taking kids. They are doing that sometimes because when Homan said they've rescued like what was like 120,000 kids a while ago, it was like some number like that. What they found was people would get paid by the cartels or by traffickers to pose as a mother and a father and bring 3 or 4 children who are for sale. I don't know if I could say that on YouTube. They're whatever into country and pose as a family, and then they're just awaiting a buyer. And the agents would go in and they'd round up this family because they're all illegals anyways, and they'd maybe do a little bit of investigative work and determine, oh wait, these aren't these children's parents. So, and then the media gets a hold of that, and instead of publishing an honest article about the fact that ICE rescued children from traffickers, they instead will write the article, ICE is arresting children, is rounding up kids and separating them from their parents and this and that, and that's so harmful and so dishonest. And it's dangerous to the overall goals of actually rescuing these children from people that seek to do them harm, and it's just gross. Like when I see it as a legal immigrant and as somebody who cares about children from the third world, as former child of the third world, that offends me on a personal level. It's a
And
it's
I
just
heard
a slap in the face to
Obama
the good work that they're doing.
Obama gave Homan some kind of award, right? And recognition.
It was like the Presidential
back
Medal of Freedom. It's the same thing Ellen DeGeneres got. I think it was the same ceremony.
Yeah. And Obama deported either more or a good
Over
amount
2
of
million.
people, and none of that was ever questioned. States
It was
worked
more
with
than
them
the
on it.
previous 6 presidents combined, I believe, is what somebody had said.
Yeah, and I think there's a little bit of nuance there. So Obama technically, when they would catch and then release, they'd say like, okay, we caught you, we're going to release you back into the interior of the country. So that was a big problem. Same with Biden, did the same thing. So like that's why the deportation numbers are super, super high with Obama. He wasn't deporting them like how President Trump is. Like the thing that like people need to understand is that the way that deportations are, the way that they're supposed to work and why they were failing so much under previous presidents is when you catch someone and then you try and send them back, if their home country won't accept them, you can't continually hold them. The Supreme Court has said that is actually a violation of their Fourth Amendment rights, and that they have to be given some reasonable amount of time. You can't just indefinitely detain them because they're in the country illegally. Now, you can sentence them and they can serve prison sentences for committing other crimes, but because their home countries weren't taking them back, they're like, I guess we'll have to release you back until your home country picks you up, but we'll be watching you. That's insane. That's a terrible, broken policy. And what Trump has been doing is he's been telling other countries, if you won't accept your people back, you don't get any more people to come to this country. That's why he's actually suspended visas from all these countries. Like my dad's home country, Sierra Leone, they suspended their visas because they're notorious for people coming here and overstaying their visas, and Sierra Leone not doing any help to get their people back. But I just wanted to pull up this story that Tom Homan, this was just on the 3rd of January, said federal agencies have found 129,000 previously missing migrant children. And I think it's very important for people to understand why this is a thing. Under Biden and under Obama, they would release children to family members. And then when DHS went to go check on them, they were like, I don't know where the kid is. It was like, what do you mean you don't know where the kid is? They're like, I don't know where the kid is. That's how many children they believe that upwards of like close to like 300,000 children are technically missing. And they've already found 129,000. So like, just understand that the way that the system was broken and the way that cartels abused and trafficked children is horrifying. And I'm glad that Tom Homan is going to be coming to Minnesota. He's got a lot of pedigree. And like I said, sometimes changing up the strategy doesn't mean you lose the game. We've seen it happen. We'll see what happens in the Super Bowl next week or 2 weeks from now. Sometimes you might be up 27-0 and then you lose. So, at halftime because they come out with a different strategy.
Overall, let's build things up. no more people get harmed on either side, and follow the laws. So if we need to read up on what the laws are related to different things as a people, we need to do that and then abide by them. And then if you don't like them,
Absolutely.
change them. You know.
So
Should be that
Drew,
simple.
I'm gonna ask. Let's see if we can switch to a. I don't want to say happy topic because I don't know if we've got any of those this week. But it sounds like there's an update on the Greenland deal that you wanted to kind of give us an update on, and we could use a palate cleanser from all this
Yeah,
protest and
I don't got
ice.
anything specific. Maybe we just talk about that and see where things at. I know there was a
Yeah,
lot of back
absolutely.
and forth about buying Greenland, adding it, doing different things. But it seems like they came to some kind of agreement when we're talking about mineral rights, because we have Puerto Rico, Guam, different ways that we partner with different countries in different kind of ways. And I guess here's one thing I do know as shipping lanes kind of open up. So, for one thing, Russia and China, that's always going to be a big, big enemy there, and Greenland is in a good spot to help one side or the other of the hemisphere. So, and especially as shipping lanes kind of open up, and not to mention the fact that with the Panama kind of areas and China and stuff like that. So that is more of a long-term thing. I wanted to get your guys' idea. Oh, one thing, Nick Shirley, the guy that exposed the Minnesota fraud, he was in Greenland about a year ago asking people, hey, would you like to be part of the U.S.? And there were different things. People were like, no. But they're like, well, kind of like Alaska, the individuals get an amount of money just for living there because of whatever oil and natural resources. What if you got $100,000 a year? And the guy was like, yeah, I guess I would want to be that then. So yeah, what's your guys'
That
take
Alaska
on
dividend was
Greenland?
fantastic when I was stationed up there.
Dividend,
That was
Alaska dividend. Yeah, what about,
after
I'll go to
21.
Greenland.
That was drinking money. You know what I mean?
Yeah, what do you guys take on Greenland situation?
So listen, I think sometimes people, they just have fatigue from things that currently aren't highly relevant to their everyday life. It's great that President Trump has been able to bring down the price of so many things, gas being one of them. Eggs, I saw the other day, literally at Walmart here in Forest Lake, were $1.18 or $1.29 for a dozen eggs, man. That's nice and cheap, right? So I think a lot of people are like, yeah, I don't care about Greenland. Like it's kind of funny to meme it because it turns the left insane. Like they literally start just tripping balls when you say like we're gonna take Greenland. But there is actually a strategic value to it because of its proximity to the Arctic Circle, and China has been cruising all through with their icebreakers and basically negotiating all of these deals, these trade deals, right under the United States' nose. And President Trump thinks that that's garbage. He thinks that ultimately, because of their proximity to us and ultimately what we do for NATO, and Denmark being the country that, technically is the, Greenland belongs to their part of their protectorate or whatever. President Trump is like, no, it's ours. And so the thing that Trump is so good at doing is the art of the deal, right? Make the big ask. Go out there and say, yeah, we want Greenland. When ultimately all Trump really wants is he wants to be able to have mineral rights and he wants to be able to have greater military strategic presence so China stops messing around. Like that's literally what he wants. But if he would have started with that, they would have been like, no, so you make the big ask. That's what Trump is amazing at doing. And I think it's funny because people literally thought that Trump was going to go and just take over Greenland with military force, which
Put a Trump Tower in there, and
yeah, he could, I guess, but I don't ever think that was actually on the table.
Let's
He's
listen to
just
this
making
video
a big
and
ask. Yeah, let's watch
see
it.
what this guy is saying.
Yeah, absolutely.
Talking about acquiring Greenland and so on, that's of course unacceptable. Until yesterday, we couldn't rule out anything. As I hear it, the will to have Greenland, to own Greenland, was still a part of the rhetoric yesterday. But as I said, respectful dialogue through the right channels is what we have been seeking from the get-go. And I also feel that's the intention now from the other parties, and I'm happy for that. The discussions between the president and Rutte yesterday was about the common goal, the thing we actually agree on. We have to do more on security in our area, in the Arctic area. We have had representative from Greenland and the Danish government talking to Mark Rutte just a couple of days ago. And the impression I have is that what we said there, that we have some clear red lines, was been delivered to the president. Sovereign.
Yeah, we'll leave it right there. But it's hey, there's a price for everything. Everyone's got a price. If I said, hey, will you go work? I own a McDonald's. Will you go be my general manager? Like, what would you say? Would you say,
I'd say, how much
no
you gonna
way?
pay me, dog?
How
I'd
much?
say, I'm charging
what will it
350,
take?
man.
And if I think-
350,000 a year, and I'll run your McDonald's, bro.
I was gonna say 350. That's Happy Meals are more expensive than that.
There's always
$3.50. I love McDonald's. Okay,
About
I will
$3.50.
work for
$3.50.
slave wages.
No, that's the thing is there's always a price because there might be it might be the Alaskan McDonald's and you can make this to make that. You always got to feel it out. You just don't say no to something. You say, hey, let me see the contract. Can I see that in writing? I think I talked to this previously. I'm looking for a new or a truck, and so it's like, let me see all the details, break it down. Oh, you're adding NOS into the tires or, all this different stuff. Like, nope, I want the price out the door with all of it, don't do all this. So it'll be an interesting topic. Last thoughts on Greenland.
Yeah, here's my last thoughts. I think even in that video, you can see like Trump he has this way where he gets under people's skin for the purpose of negotiating, right? Like Denmark is going to try and flex, red line. Let's see Denmark enforce a red line. Like, come on. But it's so they don't seem like they're weak. And so President Trump, he'll say his forceful position, and then Denmark will say their forceful position, and he plays them because he said, like, his rhetoric has changed. Like, again, did President Trump want to just take over Greenland? No. If Greenland would have said, yeah, if Denmark would have said, no, have Greenland, he'd be like, oh, great, okay. But his goal was never that was like, nothing, Greenland or nothing, Greenland or bust. He just wanted mineral access and greater security so China is not literally in our backyard as they have been, because that's the greater conflict that is coming on the horizon that China has been gearing up for 50 years. So that's my final thoughts on Greenland is Trump's going to win because he's
David's final thoughts and then take it wherever you want.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the positive there, and AK, you kind of alluded to it, is one of my favorite things about President Trump that I've seen. And a lot of people are like, don't be a bootlicker or whatever. And I think that's ridiculous language, because I'm not pro everything he does. Like how he handled our first article, right? The White House statement that they put out about this person wanting to kill ICE agents. I think that was a gross mishandle of that situation. I think, like we had talked about, it was just a series of tragic events. But when it comes to deals and things like this, the thing he's really good at is the distraction, right? So while everybody is over here talking about, protesting Trump invading Greenland with special forces or something, he's there with his ambassadors having meetings, negotiating the actual deal we want while everybody's talking about this other thing. And I think that's something he's done with other deals, and I think it's fantastic the way he approaches it with that.
Yeah, I have been seeing memes and stuff where it's like, hey, we'll sell you we'll trade you Minnesota for Greenland. And so it gives like Minnesota to Canada, and it's like, can we have Greenland? It's wild. I'm gonna
I think
leave
the
it
one I
we're in
saw
a
was for
simulation.
Alberta. Was we trade Minnesota for Alberta?
Yeah, there's different.
No,
ones,
I mean,
so,
I keep on seeing
enjoy
that
the
too.
simulation.
No, listen, man. Like when people are like trade Minnesota, I'm like, listen, here's what you need to do. You just need to trade Minneapolis, okay? Like
I know.
let's
People
just
keep
make
not
Minneapolis its
understanding
own
it. We're
autonomous
not.
nation.
Minnesota is not a blue state. If you look at the map, it's red, all except for some counties and cities.
9 counties went for.
Yeah, you know more than me,
Harris.
but yeah, basically St. Paul, Minnesota, or St. Paul, Minneapolis, Duluth. You're going to get that concentration in those, and then you get red farmers everywhere else.
Yeah, man, and kind of moving off that last topic to something that I, again, as a science tech guy, like I'm not even a tech guy, right? Like I don't know how this stuff works, but I
appreciate these segments because I always learn something new, technologically or scientifically, that I didn't know before.
Yeah, so I'm
coming around at these.
Previous shows, I've talked about quantum teleportation. I've talked about solar flares and pole shifts, and talked about the giant asteroid slash, it's right now, it's currently behind the sun, but I believe sometime in March is when that bad boy is going to pop out, and we'll see what has happened to it. But let's talk about practical application that is no longer in the space of like woo-woo science, sci-fi type of stuff. Directed energy weapons. You heard about them? Well, the Department of War has now confirmed that not only does the United States possess directed energy weapons, but we are actually going to scale them up. Department of War confirmed plans to expand the use of directed energy weapons. Undersecretary of War of Research and Engineering confirmed on January 23rd that it is further developing these weapons. This follows guards reporting that a sonic weapon during the American raid to capture former Venezuelan dictator Nicolas Maduro. Yes, the Department of War, fight for the truth. Yeah, man, Dallas Express. Sorry. Yes, the Department of War has directed energy weapons. Yes, we are scaling them. The Office posted on X. So do you guys remember the capture story of Maduro? We talked about it, didn't we? Maybe.
Yeah, we covered that story. Yeah.
Right, where the guy said that like his skin was like, felt like it was on fire and all this different stuff. And so people are like, they might have used some type of, energy weapon. Go ahead, Drew.
Yeah, I know a little bit about this actually from when I served on active duty, and this was 2004, 2005 time. It was things have come a long way since then, but they were talking about, and this was in like we're doing different things in Iraq, but then like Maxim magazine came up with like they're starting to use, put these like turret type things on Humvees that can, make your skin get heater, based kind of like a direct heater, in a way, or a sound variation. And we were all like, that is crazy. That could never happen. That's sci-fi. That's whatever. And then slowly over the years, they've been implementing it in crowd control, probably in other countries, and then slowly more into this stuff. But yeah, there are, think of it like a blow dryer, just higher powerful, or sound as well. So yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. And so there's basically, doing some research into this as I have, there's basically like two types, there's two categories, two families of directed energy weapons. There's like microwaves and sound waves, or sonic waves, which you physically can't see, but they like will point it, and it basically, again, is sending out waves that are not visible to the human eye, and it like will produce sensations like your skin's on fire, or like you literally can't hear, like you like lose sight because it like basically reverberates in your brain and causes your brain to go all wonky. And then there's lasers. I like the lasers. And so
you had me at lasers.
Yeah,
Can
man.
we get
like,
sharks with freaking lasers attached
yes,
to their heads?
freaking lasers, man.
Oh, Drew, I love you.
But
That's,
yeah, man, so
that's
that's the other
fantastic.
family. I think the microwave and like making you like poop your pants and being unable to see and make your skin feel like it's on fire, that's scary because you can't see it. You'll just be.
It
sitting there and
reminds
all
me
of a sudden,
of that Tom
Yeah.
Cruise movie, Minority Report. Remember they had the
Minority Report,
six sticks where
they
they'd
call it
stab
six
somebody
sticks.
and throw up.
Yep.
And then they had the sonic guns where you spin it and boom, you throw somebody non-lethally.
Yeah, dude.
I was just thinking about that, David, just to kind of, bounce back into our current Minnesota topics. What if instead of the guns, we have 6 sticks?
Yes.
So it's like, it just makes a person puke, and it's like, get out of here.
Get out of here.
I don't know.
Or just, I personally prefer make them poop their pants because then their friends make fun of them. Puking, you're like, oh, puke it off, Poop your pants, man. You gotta go home and change your underwear, dog.
That's true.
So-
Yeah, you just rinse your mouth out with water if you
How
throw
about
up,
darts?
get a
How about
mint.
we, shoot darts at them? I don't.
Oh yeah, man. I mean, and this is like the things that I think of now. The problem
lethal.
is in the United States, because we have these thing called the Bill of Rights. I don't think we can just go start microwaving protesters.
Less
Unfortunately,
lethal.
I
Use
know. I mean,
beanbags.
no, I
I'm
listen,
saying when it
I
becomes
get it,
violent,
but-
though, I think then deploy the shields or whatever.
deploy the poop guns.
Exactly.
But yeah, man, I think what I'm most excited about with this is the confirmation that that they are scaling these things up. And then second, I think again we have to realize that the United States is in a position that is going to be much stronger, much more lethal under the leadership of President Trump and Secretary of War Pete Hegseth. But we don't want conflict. So it's like I've always had this belief since I was a kid, and I'm curious from both of your perspective of being deployed and being in combat situations and being just in understanding the strategy of war. I've always had the position I want us to create the most sophisticated possible weapons and never have to use them to be able to keep bad actors at bay. Like if we could create a teleportation gun and we could show you that we can teleport you into into space and like you are immediately neutralized, people would be like, oh, okay, better not mess with America because they'll teleport us into space or into the sun or into a lava pit or whatever. So I'm just curious, like your guys' perspective on weaponry.
It's a threat of force. You want to have that item that you could use. I mean, that's what nuclear weapons used to be, and then, but yeah, that's like, we have this, we don't want to use it, but so don't mess with us. Don't come over here. Same with, having self-defense and everything like that. Be like, please don't make me use this, but I will if you keep doing what you need to do, or, you keep trying and, whatever it is, people that want power, or addicts that need something, it's like, let's live in a civil society. And then, but if you want to test the waters, we're going to have this weapon that we could use. And, yeah.
Yeah, I just want to read a little bit more, and then I'll get your position on it, David. So the White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt reposted a story on X that recounted this, Venezuelan guy or whatever, one of the guards, said, suddenly it felt like my head was exploding from the inside. We all started bleeding from the nose. Some were vomiting blood. We fell to the ground, unable to move, and no way to compete with their technology, with their weapons. And I swear, I've never seen anything like it. We couldn't even stand up after the sonic weapon or whatever it was. So this is like kind of a backhanded confirmation that, yeah, we use some crazy sonic weaponry. So like, what are your thoughts on this, David? Like, overall, I guess if you had to put a percentage chance, do you think that we have way more advanced weaponry than this? Or do you think that the slow leaking of this is like, yeah, this is where we're currently at?
Oh, I 100% think that we have lots of significantly advanced tech. I mean, I remember my time in the military, even like from 2007 to 2012. When I was overseas, they had these Humvees with these big, they looked like solar panels, but they weren't, and they would send out like noise or whatever, and then they had these other things that they'd put on the vehicles to interfere with cellular devices, so that they couldn't like call IED bombs and things like that on the road when you're doing a patrol. And I even remember, and this is going to be my slight nerd personality coming out, because I love sci-fi. I love your good fantasy novels, your Star Wars. I think it was 6 or 7 years ago, they put out that these guys from either MIT or ITD Tech or whatever had developed essentially what is a lightsaber. Like it had a backpack. It was like a mobile plasma cutter basically, but it had like a start point and a stop point. And I was like, man, if they start making those standard issue into the military, I'm going to hit the gym. I'm going to eat nothing but eggs and steak again till I've got abs, and I'm going right back into the service because I want one. That's that childhood dream of being a Jedi Knight coming true. So that's my nerd brain side of it. But yeah, absolutely. I fully believe, I mean, with the amount of like drone technology, stealth bombers, like I think we're developing a lot more stuff than people realize. And yeah, hopefully we never have to use it, but also the knowledge that it's being developed, I think is good. Because ultimately, if we do need it, it's better that we have it. And then there's also, the potential future that you've been pointing to, AK, where we could have some aliens come down. And if we're starting to develop energy weapons, we might actually stand a chance, right? If AI takes over and we have to fight the Terminators, we have some laser weapons, we might actually stand a chance.
Yeah, man, if the trans-dimensional demons that we all think are aliens decide that they're going to attack us, then, hey, man, we have a fighting chance.
All right, Doomslayer. All right, guy.
So I wanted to, unless you have any final thoughts on this topic, I wanted to talk about one last thing before we enter into our close. Kind of give my big plug to anyone that is at all kind of invested in making America great again or making Minnesota great again. But your final thoughts
No, I
on this
think-
topic?
I think I'm good on this one, man. Take it away, Drew. Unless you got something.
I kind of want to show Minority Report right now and just
Yeah,
see
no,
if we can-
let's show Minority
Do
Report.
it.
Yeah.
Do it. You got a
Do
clip?
it, man.
YouTube. This is fair use.
Fair use, fair use.
I want to see that jetpack technology.
I'm gonna pause it kind of here and there to see, make sure. But yeah, so we got Tom Cruise running here because Tom Cruise contractually has to run in every movie. Everyone knows
movie.
this.
Mhm.
And so, so now we got the law enforcement agent coming down here. He's got a 6-stick. One thing that we're not seeing in Minneapolis is the backup comes in. You know, it's like, there's a backup out, you know, so.
Also, shout out to the jetpacks, man. Get me a jetpack, dog. I'm right. I'm
Yeah.
ready.
Then you don't have the license plates.
Yeah, I agree. A little loud. Bring it down just a little bit.
Hey, Fletch.
Hey, John.
That was a rough landing.
Yeah,
Have to work on that.
that's an old shit knee of mine. Don't do it. Hey, don't do this. John?
Another really good actor, Neil McDonough. He's has his convictions and his values, and he stands by that, and still doing good stuff.
Fantastic
Great
Christian actor,
run.
absolutely. There was actually interesting story while we're before the 6-stick fight. He was actually supposed to be in a sequel to this movie. They were going to make him the main character, but because he refuses to do like lovemaking scenes because he's Catholic with basically anybody that's like not his, like he doesn't want to kiss anybody or hold hands with like an actress on screen. He basically ended up getting semi-blacklisted in Hollywood to where the only roles he could get were villain roles, and it wasn't
And he
or
crushes
like
it. He crushes villain roles.
yeah, or the character that gets killed, like in that one Star Trek movie, he dies right away. He's a red shirt, and then eventually he gets Band of Brothers. That's his big break, and now he has his own movie studio where he's making Christian films, and there's a couple on Netflix that are just incredible. And I can't promote that enough. People need to go support the art that he's making now, because it's good.
You don't have to run.
Everybody runs, Fletch.
All right, watch where they go for the action, and I'm gonna say what happens. Tom Cruise blocks it, and then you'll see the guy puke.
You know we'll catch you.
Everybody runs.
This could relate to the current ice rates. Everybody runs.
runs.
Get your 6-sticks ready.
6-sticks.
Everybody runs, Fletch.
Slow down, Chief. Just take it easy.
No sudden moves, Chief.
John, it's okay.
Fletch.
Easy does it, Chief.
Oh, that's the best part, man.
I kind of want to watch that movie now. So
Yeah,
There's
dude,
a there's a similar device in the Kick-Ass movie that the little girl, the hit girl, uses, where
Yeah.
she actually makes happen what AK wants to happen, where somebody craps their pants in the middle.
Yeah,
of
no,
high
that's
school.
that's
The
that's
girl
what we
bullying
need.
her. Yep.
We need that. We need that for the anti-ICE protesters. I'm sure that they'll complain that's like a Geneva, human rights violation or something like that, or violation of Geneva Code. But yeah, man, we need
Listen,
poop
all
guns.
those people love their juice cleanses and their soy latte cleanses.
Yeah, man.
And their yoga. It's
They'll
just a
probably be doing it
cleanse.
to
You
themselves,
went out to
dude.
the protest. You stood against ICE, and you got a cleanse. Like that's the most
Oh.
woke thing you could do in a weekend.
where was COVID type of treatments when it
No,
came
you're
to
right. for
Geneva Convention.
Yeah,
so-
no, dude, you're
Yeah,
not
I'm
wrong. You're not wrong. So, kind of the last point and topic that I wanted to bring up. Obviously, I'm the Republican National Committee man, and as I said at the beginning of the show, I want to make sure that people that are concerned about making America great again, making Minnesota great again, supporting President Trump, that you actually take a step beyond what you've been comfortable with. So, Minnesota, we have something that is called a caucus. No, it's not a dirty word. And simply, it's a way for you to get involved at the most local level of your actual Republican Party apparatus. So I'm going to pull up just a few different pieces, but look at your calendar. Next Tuesday, okay, not tomorrow, but next Tuesday, February 3rd at 7 o'clock is caucus night. And so if you go to the website committocaucus.com It will bring you to the Secretary of State. You plug in your address, and it shows you where you caucus. Precinct caucuses are meetings run by Minnesota's political parties. They are the first in a set of series of meetings where parties may endorse candidates, select delegates, and set goals and values called party platforms. Statewide precinct caucuses take place on a specific date in even years as described above. Contact parties for information about other meetings, including those in odd years. So like the main point is that like if you're like you want to be involved, this is the first kind of foot in the door of being involved in the actual party. And the thing that's crazy that I try and explain to people is that by simply showing up, bring maybe a couple of your friends, you are going to actually become an active member of your party, to the point that if you want to run for party leadership, it's not that difficult, and they're always looking for new people. But here's the most significant thing. If you have ever sat and thought to yourself, man, I think the Republican Party's lame, or they're weak-willed, or they're weak-kneed, this is actually how you change that. Don't just talk trash. Get involved and show that you want to have a party that looks different if you're critical of it. And I'm someone that always says, if you're critical of the Republican Party, but you support Republican Party values, then get involved and change the party to be reflective of what you want it to look like. Now, it's not easy because you have to convince other people. But the way that the caucus system works is you show up, and again, Republicans all caucus together, so there will be no Democrats unless they're trying to infiltrate. But I haven't had experience with that happening. And it's basically people that are going to be within like a few city blocks of where you live. They will all get together, and you will elect local caucus members. If you don't want to run, you don't have to, but you can run to be a delegate. And it's literally like a room of maybe 20 people. Sometimes you might have 50 people. Sometimes you only have like 2 people. And that's how you actually get involved. And so I just want to throw it out there that it will take maybe 2 hours, tops, maybe 3 hours of your night. And if you decide that that's the furthest you want to go is just going to caucus, do that. But there's one big reason to go. This body, starting at the caucus level, are going to be people that elect delegates who will endorse our statewide elected officials. So if you want, let's say, Lisa Damath or Mike Lindell or Royce White or Michelle Tafoya or Adam Schwarzy to win in their respective races, this is actually how you become a delegate, is by showing up, raising your hand, saying, I want to be a delegate, getting elected by the people that are in that room with you, and you move up and you run again to a larger group of people. But the other thing is you actually get to cast a straw poll ballot. So we have a straw poll, which is you vote and say, here's who I think should win. And from that, all across the state, we're going to have a good sample of who people right now that are committed to the Republican Party and helping to make America great again and make Minnesota great again. You're going to have a good idea of who they actually support for their statewide candidates. The last little piece, this is also the process in which you get to elect the endorsed candidates for your local area. So if you have a state rep or a state senator and you think that, oh man, I really hate that guy, I think he's a weak-spined Republican, this is actually how you run to become a delegate. So when there's an endorsing convention, you can stand up and say, nay, he is not a good Republican. And I'm not saying that you should do that. I'm just saying if you wanted to, that's what you could. Hopefully what you say is like, I love this person and I want to be even more supportive of them. But I just, again, want to, really commend everyone and challenge, I should say, not commend. I'll commend you if you go. But I want to challenge everyone to honestly, seriously consider going out to caucus on caucus night, being involved in the Republican Party as more than just someone that's sitting on the sidelines. And again, you go to committocaucus.org. You're going to get all your information. This is what the website looks like, committocaucus.org. And I would appreciate if you show up. So any last thoughts, Drew or David, about caucus? Are you guys planning on going? I'm not saying that you have to, and if you don't, you're not a good American. Just saying that some people just aren't interested in being involved in politics like that. But yeah, final thoughts for you guys on caucuses.
Yeah, it's good opportunity to learn more. I don't know a ton about politics, policies, things like that. I know, kind of general kind of stuff. But yeah, that's interesting.
What about you, David? You interested, man?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, I'm looking at attending my local caucus night and getting myself set up to be a delegate because I want to be more involved in local politics. I don't know that I'm going to go AK's route and eventually have deep ties in the RNC at his level, but I do think that as somebody who served this country in the military, I have an obligation to serve, um, at whatever level that people that vote decide that I'm best fit to serve at. And I think I've tried to live my life these last few years off of the biblical passage, "To whom much is given, much is expected." So absolutely, I will be attending this and seeing, how far I can go in the process of serving both this state and this country.
Yeah, and one last thing, you can actually go as an observer if you're like, man, I don't know if I really want to go, like actually become a delegate or whatever. You can go as an observer just to see how the process works. But I'm telling you, it's like the least pressure you will ever experience. You're going to find out that these are people that are neighbors that maybe you didn't even know were Republicans or conservatives. And you'll get to know them and be able to even find a new group of people that have similarly aligned values with you. So again, I encourage anyone that watches the show that's a Republican, because this is the key. You can't be independent in regards to like, oh, I think I might vote Republican. No, this is for Republicans. These are people that say, at least this election cycle, I am committed to voting for the Republican. It doesn't mean anything beyond that. It's just you have to be committed to voting for the Republican. Then you should show up. If you're a Democrat, Democrats have their own caucus. Get out of here. And we actually can challenge people. So if you know a known Democrat shows up to your caucus, you actually, and if they try and run, you can say, no, I am challenging. And you can actually
Do you
block them
get to
from
hit them with a silk glove
Yes,
and
you
engage in a
do.
duel?
You do.
Okay.
But
I'm in.
that's-
Sold.
and that's I'm not a lawyer. That is not legal advice. If you hit people with silk
Yeah,
gloves, you may go to
YouTube.
prison.
We're not recommending that from anybody.
One last thing, just want to go through a couple more of these chats from John. John has been a machine tonight in the chats. He says, I think these are the same people who think black people cannot use the internet or have access to it, that they don't have IDs. And I think he's talking in reference to the people from that ICE video you're talking about, David, that were like honking their horns. And the guy's like, they're legal immigrants. You guys are racist. Yeah, because I mean, that's this idea, right, that voter ID will suppress the black vote. And it's like, black people know how to get IDs, man. Like, don't insult us. And then also says Greenland thing didn't make a whole lot of sense until after I read and heard more about the benefits of these, and it makes 100% sense now. 100% sense now. And that's true, man. I mean, that's the thing, is like, at first blush, it's like, who cares about Greenland? Because we care about what's happening in our neighborhoods, in our cities. And sometimes it's like this other stuff that sometimes gets focused on. It's like, oh man, but I think you can walk and chew gum at the same time. And then says, I'm going to go on February 3rd. So shout out to Ben. And it said, I think in Ben.
I think it's supposed to be Mankato.
Oh, Mankato, and can do it. Yeah, you should definitely show up. Like I said, go to the website, commit to caucus, put in your address, and it'll tell you where you got to go. But I think that wraps it for us. If you want, I can start with my closing.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a great show, everybody. AK, why don't you tell people where they can find you and what you got coming up in the next week or so?
Yep. So as you guys saw earlier, you can follow me on X and then also Facebook and Instagram at Real AK Kamara. You can also follow me on TikTok at AK Kamara. I haven't produced any videos in the last week. My schedule's been completely insane. But typically I try and produce videos like 3 to 5 a week, kind of breaking down current news topics. Obviously, this next week I'll be very busy preparing for caucuses, because I will be at the state party headquarters, trying to help with the results that come in from the straw polls. And always listen to me on Fridays, the John Justice Show, AM 1130 or 103.5 FM. And if you're not in the listening area, you can always listen on iHeartRadio. Just look up John Justice Show on podcast, or you can listen live on Twin Cities News Talk channel on iHeartRadio. Over to you, my good friend Drew. What you going to be doing? Where can people find you?
Yeah, if you could stop sharing, I'll go ahead and share.
Gotcha.
Yep, I am practicing. I'm training. I got to be more active for my mono ski. So this was bi-ski last year, and this is in Colorado through the VA. So if you're a veteran that has a lot going on, there are ways to get off the couch. There are ways to push yourself to your own limits. And so this was in Colorado, in Aspen, with trainers, with specialty, with prosthetics. Operation Outstanding in Field on YouTube. And so, yeah, we get to Colorado. It was a week long, and the first day, you get a tundra of all
left
this
side. This is where all the
storm.
snow is.
And so, yeah, you push yourself to the limits, and it's freaking awesome. So just because you have some kind of injury, disability, that's not a death sentence, and even when your doctors are saying, you might not be able to walk again, that's what I got. And I'm like, that doesn't have to be me. I'm going to find a way. And especially, being more active and less on the medication, more on the health and nutrition and other things. Everything has their spots. Listen to your doctor, all that. But yeah, I'm going to be training this week. I'll be locally in Minnesota on the slopes and trying to stay warm doing that. And also you can find me on X at Drew Outstanding. Thank you guys for an awesome discussion. I learned something new every time I talk to the both of you.
Absolutely. All right, folks, you can find me at my socials at the Peruvian Gentleman. Just recently made that change. Very excited about that. On X, though, I am still at 50 Webster. What I have going on this week, if AM wants to throw up the visual, tomorrow night, I am actually going to be down at the University of Minnesota Mankato, talking with the Turning Point chapter down there about federal immigration enforcement and why assimilation is a necessary component of immigration, kind of using my own life story as a template for why that leads to better success. I think it's better for the immigrant. I think it's better for the civilization, right? It opens a lot more doors and creates a lot more opportunity to actually achieve that American dream if you make assimilation a necessary component. So I'll be sharing that tomorrow at 6 p.m. at the Morris Hall. I'd love to answer people's questions, have some debate. I don't need everybody to agree with me. If you have questions, you want to challenge what I say, that'd be fantastic. Otherwise, you can catch me at Caucus Night here in the Eagan-Lakeville area. And end of this month, I'm going to be at 2DCon, which is a big tabletop board game convention for nerds, where you just play a bunch of board games. Don't judge me. I'm a nerd. I'm into all that sort of stuff. If there's a con and I haven't been, I'm going to check it out just to see what it's about, because I like being around my fellow nerds. And I think conservatives, we need to participate in culture, like we've talked about, because politics is downstream of culture. And if we're not there representing our values, then it's going to be owned part and parcel by the left, and we need to participate. So those are the things that I'm excited about, that I'm going to be participating in the next couple of weeks, either before or during the next show.
Thanks to AM, our producer, who's hooking everything up behind the scenes. We appreciate you.
Shout out. And make sure you guys hit the like button, hit the share button, drop your comments as we continue to grow. And also, if you have criticisms of things that you don't like, we're a new podcast. This is only episode 11, but I've had an amazing time. You guys have yourself a great weekend. And David, final closing thoughts, brother, and send us out.
Yeah, absolutely. Keep the conversation going in the chat, like we were saying. Let us know, what topics you'd want us to see us maybe dive into more, maybe some topics you'd rather we take a break from. And the more you guys like and share this podcast on whatever service you're getting them from, the bigger the guests that we'll have on. I know we've had Walter Hudson. We're looking at having a couple of other, even on my TikTok, I followed somebody that's kind of a local Minnesota personality, and I think she's going to be on the show later to kind of talk about the impact of everything going on with ICE in the communities, in her community, from her perspective. So yeah, the more you share us, the more you get us out there, the more guests we can have, and the deeper the conversations we can have. But it's been a great show. Good night, everybody. Stay safe. Make good decisions. We'll see you all at Caucus Night.